And it's time for the Tournament of Stitches. Roll the credits.
Hit it, hit it.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Tournament of Stitches with Marley Bird. This is the 4th annual mystery make-along that I have held during the March Madness basketball event. It is a great chance for knitters and crocheters to come together, learn some new stitches and techniques, and have a little fun along the way. I am thrilled to have you here, and if this is your first one, welcome. If this is your 4th one, I'm excited to have you returning as a team member. This is a fun event this year, and it's a little bit different from years past. Let me tell you why. In the previous years, we have made shawls primarily, and in those shawls, we've learned a bunch of different stitches. We've made a basic triangle shawl, an asymmetrical shawl, and then last year we made scarves and cowls, so a lot of neckwear. This year I decided that after the year of 2020 and the craziness that is my life, I needed something a little bit more relaxed, and I assume that a lot of you feel the same way. I don't want to be working on something that feels like it takes a lot of brain power to work through, or even a lot of energy to get through a full list of homework. I want something that's comfortable, that's fun, that's colorful, that's going to be inspiring, and something I really want to work on, whether it's picking up the hook or picking up the needles. To me, I feel like this year's class project really hits the mark. It's something that is rather easy, yet exciting because of the color work. And then once you see the full reveal of what you are making, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. This Tournament of Stitches is something a little bit different than other mystery make-alongs that I do, because you do know what you're making, you just don't know what it looks like. So for this year, we are all making a blanket. Whether you're making a knitted blanket or a crocheted blanket, that is your choice. And this year, for the first time, I'm giving a smaller option for the knitters. I know that as knitters, it takes us a good amount of time to get through our homework, and some of us are slower than others. So I'm giving those of you out there who don't think you can finish a throw blanket in a 6-week time period a chance to make a pillow instead. So you will follow instructions for the pillow instead of the throw blanket, but you'll still be able to follow along, learn some great techniques, and hopefully have some fun along the way. A full list of the materials you need and the details regarding the Tournament of Stitches are listed on my website. I've put a link in the video description box right down there below, and you know the drill. Smash that like button as you're down there. Once you click the link, you will see all of the yarn you need, the hook or the needles that you need, and the full list of instructions. Now, I'm going to put a little caveat there, or put a little asterisk there for you. As we're going through the Tournament of Stitches, the instructions are given on a weekly basis. So as you scroll to the bottom of that blog post, that's where you will find the link for each set of instructions. This is a 6-week course, 6-week knit along or crochet along. So you will have a set of 6 different instructions, and the full link for each one is at the bottom of the blog post that is linked in the video description box below this video. So hopefully that is as clear as possible for where you need to go to get the details regarding the Tournament of Stitches, to get the material list, and where you're going to go each week to get the instructions that you're supposed to follow along with these videos. Okay? The last thing I want to mention is that if you want to ask questions, participate as a team together, I really encourage you to join me over in the Marley's Minions Facebook group. I know some of you don't do Facebook, but I will let you know the Facebook group that I run, the Marley's Minions, is amazing. It is upbeat, it's inspirational, it's fun. The moderators I have in there are exceptional. They keep everything on the up and up and par, and the number one rule that we have is that you keep it positive, you keep it fun, and you don't be a jerk. So if you're looking for a safe place to come and play and be part of the team, I encourage you to come and do that. Are there prizes? Yes. yes, you can find the details about that once again in that blog post below. All right, so I've talked more than enough at the start of this video, and I know that there are some of you out there that are like, oh my gosh, stop jibber jabbering, but I have to give you some of this information at the start. Not all of the videos are like this. So having said that, I'm gonna ask you to go ahead, grab your yarn and grab your hook or your needles, and let's go ahead and jump in to week 1 of the Tournament of Stitches. Well, hello there, crocheters, and welcome to the Tournament of Stitches 2021 week 1. You should have your free pattern already in front of you. If you haven't gotten it yet, make sure you click that link in the video description box below, scroll all the way to the bottom of the blog post, and click the link for week 1. There you'll find everything you need for the video today. Now, for the video today, we are going to be going over an intarsia square, and this is the technique we are going to use for the entire class project. Having said that, over the next several weeks, I'm going to show you some different types of techniques that you could use to do a project similar to what we're making. It'll just have a different look. I really wanted to make sure that we had a chance to just sort of relax and have a good time as we're working on this project together. Now, because I know some of you might find a little part of this difficult, I'm going to tell you right now that you can decide right now if you want to make this project as individual squares or as a join as you go method. We're going to start off by learning how to make the individual square because everybody has to start with that. From that point forward, though, you can decide if you want to work a join as you go method, which I will show you, or if you just want to continue on making individual squares in the color sequence that you will find in the pattern. Okay, so I want to make sure that those of you that will watch the video and are thinking, gosh, this just seems a little bit difficult, it's a little bit too much for my brain at this point in time, I want you to be aware that there is an option for you to do one that's a little bit easier, a little bit less taxing than the join as you go. But I also know there are many of you out there who are crocheters that won't do anything unless it's join as you go. So I wanted to make sure you had both options. Before I get started with the actual instructions, I have to remind you of one last thing. When you are following along, make sure you are using the numbers written in the pattern for what you are making. If you're making the throw blanket, use the throw numbers. If you're making the pillow, use the pillow numbers. I'm using numbers here in the video that will work, that are great for you to test out the technique. But as far as making the actual project, use the numbers that are written in the pattern. All right, let's go ahead, grab all 5 colors of your yarn and your hook, and we can get started. Before we get some chains on the hook, I want to take a look at this diagram because this is a representation of the very first quadrant you are going to complete for your throw or your pillow. We are going to start right here with square number 1, and then you have a choice of doing join as you go for 2, 3, 4, 5, so on and so forth, or you can make each one of these individual and then seam them up later. Totally up to you. Either way will work absolutely. We are all going to start on the first square the same way. But then if you decide to make a join as you go quadrant, you will go ahead and work square number 2 the way I'm going to show you, and square number 3, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with square number 1, which is a combination of 2 colors, and we're going to work back and forth with single crochets, and every row we're going to change colors on the diagonal right there to get this really great diagonal look. As we're working on the class project, you can follow along with the written instructions or the stitch diagram. You will find the full stitch diagram in the written instructions. You can go ahead and print this off if you want. This is where we are going to begin. And the first thing I do want you to notice is that the chains we're going to start with actually are 2 different colors, which does mean we're going to chain 9 chains with 1 color and then 2 chains with another color. But there's a little trick to this. I want to make sure you understand. So really pay attention. Let's go ahead and grab our color A and get started. just like any project, we are going to begin with a slip knot. So I'm going to go ahead and put a slip knot on my hook, and I am using my color A. Now color A, I'm supposed to chain 9, but really when I get to number 8, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I want the next chain to be my color A, but I want to have color, what is it? Color E on my hook. So I chain 8, and I'm going to grab my color E, which is this pink color, and I am going to pull through my chain with my color E for my 9th chain of color A. You see, that gives me 9 chains with color A, and it leaves my color E on the hook. So now I'll have 2 more chains with color E. So let's see here, this will be 1 and 2. This is just the same thing that you would do if you're changing colors in a project by yarning over the last draw through. It's the very same thing. But there is a trick here. As we're coming back, we're already going to change colors when we get to this second stitch here. And when we pull up our color A to use it, this chain right there has a tendency to try and disappear. So we want to make sure that it does not do that. So now that we have all 11 chains here, we will do a single crochet in the second chain from hook. So here's 1, and this is where I would normally yarn over and draw through 2, but we're changing color. So I'm going to drop my color E, pick up my color A, and as I pull my color A up here to be drawn through, I want to make sure that this chain doesn't disappear. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to pinch it to make sure it doesn't get too small on me. Okay, see, now it's good. And then I'm going to work into it, because now I'm supposed to work into that chain with my color A and then continue on. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. This will be my 9th one, giving me a total of 10 stitches because we did the first one with our color E. All right, this is a little tricky start, so it's very important that you understand how this works. Here's a little tip though. If you're struggling with this, you can go ahead and just chain 11 with just color A and then go into color E automatically with that first stitch and then change colors, so on and so forth. But this is the best way really, I think, to start off. I'm going to show you that one more time. Put the E out of the way. Okay, we start off with a slip knot on our hook. And our goal here is we want to chain 9 with our color A, but we will have to change color after we get 8 chains done, okay? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If I do my next one, I'll get my gray chain, but I'll have a gray chain on my hook or a gray loop on my hook, and I don't want that. I want a pink loop on my hook. So I've chained 8. When I do my 9th one, because I need to change colors, I'm still on my color A. I'm just pulling through my color E. So now I still get 9 chains right there. Now I have to do 2 chains with my color E. So 1 and 2. So I have a total of 11 chains here. I'm going to place a single crochet in the second chain from hook, which will place 1 single crochet in that pink. Once I get that in there, I need to also remember that I'm changing colors again. so that way I can get 9 single crochets in my gray, all right? So here's how this is going to go. I'm going to go to the pink. I'm going to insert my hook into that pink chain, yarn over, pull up a loop, and I'm going to pause. Just like before, this is where I would change colors in the final draw through. So I'm going to drop my pink, pick up my gray, and remember that gray is also, it's coming from this chain space right there, and I don't want that to disappear. So I'm going to pinch that chain so it doesn't go anywhere. So that way, as I'm pulling this working yarn up here to pull through those 2 loops on my hook, I am not accidentally making this chain right there too small, okay? So I've worked into the first chain from hook, the second chain from hook, I'm sorry. Now I'm going to work into the first gray chain. So there's 1, that's the one that I saved. And now I'll work into each chain all the way to the end. When I stop here, I should have a total of 10 stitches. One of them is going to be pink, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 10 stitches. I have 10 working stitches, and as I work back and forth in rows, I will have a total of 10 rows. And with each row, this pink stitch will move over 1 spot with each row. If you're right-handed, it will move over 1 spot to the left. If you're left-handed, it'll move over 1 spot to the right. When we do this, it is very important that we transition with our color changes in a very precise way, so really pay attention here. I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn. You can turn and chain 1, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm going to go ahead and work single crochets all the way down until 1 stitch before the color change. All right, so essentially I'm going to work down until I have 1 gray stitch remaining. And on the stitch before that last gray stitch, I am going to pull through my opposite color so that way I can use it on that next stitch. So here I go. I have 2 more grays, right? So on this next gray one, sorry, I'm trying to hold my yarn. On this next gray one, I will do my single crochet up to where I get 2 loops. I'm going to take my gray and I'm going to pull it to the front. All right, so I'm taking the gray, I'm pulling it to the front, and I'm just going to hold it out of the way. I'm going to take my pink and I'm going to bring my pink up. I'm going to bring it up here and yarn over my hook and pull this through. Now when I do that, can you see that pull right there, that float I have right there with the pink? Can you see that float with the pink? What I want to do is as I work into this next gray stitch, I am going to work around that float. All right, so if you see here, there's my gray stitch. There's the top of my gray stitch right there, right? So that's where I want to ultimately put my hook. So if I were just to put my hook in, it would go right there into that gray stitch. But I want to hide the float that I used, right? There's my float. So I'm going to make sure I go underneath my float and through that gray stitch. Does that make sense? All right, so here we go. I'm going to go under the float and under the gray stitch under both legs. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. You see how that really makes that transition there? It looks really good and somewhat invisible. It looks like this is just a regular old stitch. So that's 1, and now we have to put another stitch into the first pink one we did. All right. So now instead of only having one pink stitch, we have two. Chain one and turn. All right. Going back, we're going to put a pink stitch here, a pink stitch here, and a pink stitch here. And pay attention to how I handle the float with the opposite color, because this is very important. So I'm going to put my pink stitch right here in the first stitch, pink stitch in the next stitch. Now, as I go into the following stitch, I want it pink, but I'm also going to take the gray down here and I'm going to pull it up so that the float is resting on my hook, okay? It's resting on my hook. Yarn over with the pink and pull up a loop. Drop your pink, pick up the gray, yarn over and pull through with your gray or whatever color you're using, all right? As we go on to these next stitches, they're all going to be gray, but do not work over this pink. Let that pink just lay down there flat. See, it's just laying down there. We want to lay it down there because the next time we want to use it, we're going to float it up and then hide that float just like we did last time. So let's do that one more time. So we're going to go down this row with our gray now. All right, so I'm going to go down the row, all the way down the row with my gray. Again, I'm only using 10 stitches here. If you're following along with the throw blanket pattern, you have more stitches than this. You will simply be doing the exact same thing. You'll just have more stitches than I do. So it all is done the exact same way, all right? All right, so I'm at the end of my row. I'm chaining one. And before I turn, I just want to point out on this next row, instead of having just 3 pinks, we're going to have one more pink. We're going to pull that pink yarn over to create a pink stitch to move it over one, all right? So I've chained one and I'm turning. I will work over to where I need to do my color change, which is 1 stitch before the stitch that's going to be the new color, okay? So here we are. These are the 2 stitches left in my gray. As I complete this one, my final draw through here is where I have to change my color. So it's at this point. If you haven't picked up on this yet, we're looking at the wrong side of the fabric when I do this row. I'm going to take my gray, I'm bringing it forward, okay? So I'm bringing it towards me, underneath the hook, just bringing it forward. It's in front of that stitch, I'm just bringing it forward. Now this stitch right here, that yarn, I'm going to bring it up and use it over here to pull through these 2 chains on my hook. And when I do that, I want you to see here, see how it doesn't look like there's like 2 legs to that stitch right there? See how all of these look like they have 2 legs? Well, the minute I pull this up and yarn over and pull through, see how now it looks like it has that leg, which makes it look like it's a very uniform stitch, so it hides the float. But we can do even better by making sure that this float right there is hidden as we work into that gray stitch. So as I go into that gray stitch, I'm making sure that that float is on my hook and I'm in the stitch. It's just the same thing we did when we rested the gray yarn on our hook to hide the float. So as I complete this pull through, you can see it looks just like a normal old stitch. And then I will go ahead and work my pink stitches across these 3 stitches right here. Pretty cool, right? All right, so I'm going to chain 1 and turn. Just a reminder, this row, we're going to work 1 more pink out here. And as we do that, this is the row where we're going to have the gray rest on top of our hook, all right? We're looking at the right side of our fabric. That's why all the floats are on the opposite side. So I will go ahead and single crochet over to where I'm going to have to do my color change. So for this one, it's 1 past the pink. So I'll do this pink one, and then I'm going to put the pink one here. So this is where I insert my hook into the gray stitch. Let me just organize this. I'm going to take my gray yarn and just rest it on top of the hook. All right, so it's not getting twisted yet or anything like that. It's just resting there. There we go. So I have the gray yarn. It's just resting right next to that stitch. I yarn over with the pink, pull the pink loop up, drop the pink, right? Because we're changing colors here. Grab our gray, yarn over, pull through 2 with the gray. Leave the pink hanging, don't do anything with it. Go ahead and finish the row with your gray color or whatever color you are using. I think it's easier to use the color names than actually say like color A or color B or whatever it may be. So I hope that you guys agree with that. So I'm at the end of the row, I chain 1, I turn, I will single crochet to 1 stitch before the new color has to be used. So it's really, you're crocheting over to the last 2 stitches of the color you're using. In this one before the last, that's the one where we got to change colors. So I yarn over, pull up a loop, take my gray, pull it forward. All right. So I'm taking my gray and I'm putting it on the wrong side of my fabric. This is where I take my pink. Remember, it doesn't have that leg on that side of the stitch. But once I pull this pink up and I actually yarn over my hook with it, it gives me that leg. You see that? Can you see it gives me that leg look right there? And then we're going to do our stitch around that float and into that gray stitch that we were looking at. So I yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Then I complete the row by placing a stitch into each one of these stitches to the end of the row. Pretty easy stuff, right? I mean, it's a little tricky to get started. You might have to start this a couple times. Honestly, I had to as well. So it's one of those things I had to wrap my brain around. But once you get going with it, it's like, all right, I got this. So I've chained 1, I turn. I'm going to single crochet over to 1 stitch past the pink. But remember, as I work that 1 stitch past the pink, that's where I have to tuck in that float from the gray. So I'm working over the pinks. Here we go. I'm going to go into the gray stitch. Make sure the gray float is resting on top. Yarn over, pull up a loop, drop the pink, pick up the gray, yarn over, draw through 2. Let the pink hang out. Finish the row with your gray. Chain 1 and turn. Same thing going back. It's the same old, still moving these stitches over. So I crochet over to where it's the stitch before the one I need to change. So this one here, I'm going to work the color change. So I yarn over, pull up a loop, bring my gray forward, pick up my pink, yarn over with my pink and draw through 2. Go into the next stitch, making sure I trap that float of my pink. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Let the gray hang out and finish the row with your pink or whatever color you are using. All right, getting close to the end here. Chain 1 and turn. Single crochet all the way over to where we're going to do our color change. This is where it gets really interesting, so pay close attention, okay, guys? All the way over. Oops. All right, so this is where I'm still doing the pink. So I'm into the gray stitch, have the gray yarn rest on top, yarn over, pull up a loop, drop the pink, pick up the gray, yarn over, draw through 2, and then do 1 stitch with the gray. All right, so here we are. The next row is going to be all pink. So it's at this point we're going to have to change colors. So as we chain 1, we're going to chain 1 with our pink, our other color. So before I chain 1 and turn, I'm going to drop my gray, pick up my pink, chain 1, and turn. See, when I picked up my pink, it gave me my float that I always want. I'm going to go into this pink or this gray stitch here, making sure I trap my float. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. And now I just go all the way down the row, all with this one color. So I have done 10 stitches and 10 rows. Okay? That's very important, especially if you're going to be doing join as you go, or, you know, you want your work to all be the same size, so it's important that we make them all the same size. When you get to the end, go ahead and essentially just chain 1, cut your yarn, leave yourself a nice long tail that we can weave in. You can go ahead and cut your other color also, making sure you leave a tail. So as you chained 1, then you just simply pull that loop out, give it a tug, and this is what your work looks like. That's the wrong side, and that's the right side. Look how pretty it looks. By working those color changes in the way I showed you, you get this really great, lovely stitch look. All right? It's at this point, it's very important that we mark the right side of our square. Okay, I want to make sure we mark the right side of our square. So I'm going to grab a marker here, and I'm just simply going to mark the right side. I want to make sure I know what the right side is of my square. So I have the right side here. It's also important at this point that I weave in my tails. I don't wait until later. I go ahead and weave in my tails now. I simply take my tapestry needle or a chenille needle, and for me, I like to just bury my ends. So I go in, split my yarn, come back and split my yarn on top of it one more time with a very sharp needle, and that just gets it all tucked away very nicely. I want you to do this after you finish each square, whether you are doing individual squares or if you're doing a join as you go. It just will make your entire experience of making this throw blanket or the pillow so much better, you guys. Make sure you're weaving them in on the wrong side. All right. You don't want to wait till the very end to weave in all of your tails. That's a recipe for disaster. So just take some time, get yourself a chenille needle. Seriously, these things are fantastic. They're so pointy. And do the burying in method. That's what I'm doing right here. It just makes things so much easier to just weave in, and it won't pop out. They just do such a good job. I have an entire video dedicated to just burying in ends. It's taught by my friend Ann Burke, who is the queen of intarsia, which is a lot of color work. She's used to weaving in tails, guys. Like, she knows what she's talking about. So you definitely want to do this as you go along. I'm almost done here. See, it doesn't take too long at all to weave these in, and it will just make things so much easier. So the cool thing here is if you are making individual squares, if you're not going to do the join as you go, your square, everything you need to know is right here. Everything that we just did is what you need to know. The only thing beyond that is you will follow the color sequence written on the color diagram. So this diagram here, you want to make sure that you follow your color sequence to create all of these squares individually. all right? If you want to do the join as you go method, that's what I'm going to do next. And it's important to recognize what your next two colors are, because we're going to start off with this blue color starting right here in the bottom right-hand corner of the square we just finished. And all of these squares are done with the right side facing, which is why it's so important to make sure that we know what is the right side. All right, we have to know what the right side is. So this square is represented right there. So we're going to do square number 2 attached right here, working along here. All right, so all of that is to say, if you're doing individual squares, you've got everything you need to know right now. You can carry on and make 9 more squares in the colors that you are using. If you want to try the join as you go method along with the intarsia, I'm going to show you how to do that right now, and I'm going to give you a couple tips that I use in order to make sure that I'm joining in the correct place. Once again, you don't have to do the join as you go, but if you can manage it, which I totally think you can. If you've done like Crochet-Along or whatever, it's just like that. You can do this, all right? So give yourself some patience and just sit down and let's work on this together, all right? So here we go. Okay, looking at the block stitch diagram, we're right here on block 2. This here is block number 1. This is what we've completed. And what you'll notice here is we're going to complete block number 2 and we're going to attach it to block number 1 as we work across the rows. We will do that by joining with a slip stitch to begin with, chaining down, and when we come back on the last chain here, we will do a single crochet 2 together into the edge of row 1 from this block and the last chain here of the chains we created. Then we slip stitch on the next row up and work single crochets back, all the while maintaining our intarsia. Row 3, maintain your intarsia, so you're still doing all those color changes. And as you come back on the final stitch, you are working a single crochet 2 together into this stitch here and into the edge of that 3rd row of this block. So knowing that, what I like to do is use stitch markers. Yes, I know, I use stitch markers all the time, but you know what? Stitch markers are your friend and they help you make sure that your work is correct. So bear with me here, okay? We're going to use the different color stitch markers to mark off what rows we're going to do slip stitches in and what rows we're going to do single crochets. Now, I know that I need to do a slip stitch join right down here in the chains. So this is my chain row, right? There's my chain row, and I'm going to join with a slip stitch down there. But then my row 1 is quite literally right there, right above where I'm going to join with a slip stitch to do my chains right here. So I will join with a single crochet 2 together. That one right there is done with my row 1. So I'm going to mark that. But then I can see row 2, I have to start with a slip stitch. So I'll take this, and I know I'm going to start with a slip stitch in my row 2. For my row 3, I know I'll be doing a single crochet 2 together. That one is right there. Okay, that one is my row 3. My row 4 is a slip stitch. All right, my row 5 is a single crochet 2 together. My row 6 is a slip. You see here, I'm just marking my rows, right? But what will help you here is you will no longer accidentally put a single crochet in the same row as a slip stitch because you have everything plotted out. And then we'll end with a slip. So I've used these markers to my advantage because as I'm creating my next square, I can come over, I'll start with this blue one, I'll remove it, and then as I come back and work my single crochet 2 together, I know exactly where it's going to go, and then I can remove that. and then I'll slip stitch into this one and I can remove that. And then I'll come back and I'll do a single crochet into that one and I can remove it, and so on and so forth. So by marking these rows, especially if you've never done this before, this is a great way to make sure you know exactly where you are placing your hook to create that single crochet 2 together. Because all the while you're doing that, you have to also do that intarsia color change. So it does seem a little bit tricky, especially for the first one, but you can manage this. All right, so let's go ahead, follow along with our instructions. Make sure you have your side, your right side facing you, and we're going to get started. So we are going to use, okay, color D and color B. All right, so my color B is this pink fairy tale color, and I'll go ahead, and as I said, down here in the bottom right corner, I'm going to join with a slip stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my blue marker, because that's my slip stitch markers, right? And I will place my hook right down here to join with a slip stitch. So I put my hook in, go ahead, yarn over, pull up a loop, and yarn over and draw through. All right, so that's a slip stitch. All right, so now I'm going to do exactly what I did down here. I'm going to chain 9 and then chain 1 more with my opposite color, okay? So as I do that, I'm going to get my chain 8 to begin with. All right, so there's 1. I'm going to pause there for a second, guys. I'm going to use this marker that I just took out, and I'm going to place it into that chain that I just did, just so I know that that's the first chain of the row, because that's where I'm going to work the single crochet 2 together right there. So I'm marking it right now. So the loop behind it's the chain behind the loop on your hook. I just marked it. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now I want the 9th one to be pink, but I want to be able to use the next color. So I'm going to grab the color I'm supposed to use also, which is this yellow color. So there is my 9th chain. There's 10 and 11. Now, just like before, I'm going to put a single crochet in the second chain from hook, but remember I have to change colors, okay? So I'm going to drop my yellow, pick up my pink, and remember what I talked about, not wanting that pink to go away, okay? We don't want that pink to go away. So I'm going to pinch the pink, yarn over with the pink, pull through 2, and now I'm going to go into that pink that I just pinched. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. All right, guys. Now I continue on working chains all the way down, all the way down to the one that I have marked. You're working your chains all the way down to the first chain. So we marked that first chain, so if you did as well, we're going to work all the way down to the marked chain. All right, here's our marked chain. Our goal here is we're going to do a single crochet 2 together into this marked chain and where our yellow or orange marker is. So I'm going to put my hook into that marked chain with the blue, yarn over, pull up a loop. Put my hook in where that stitch marker is with the orange. So I'm going to put it in, that's the end of that row. Yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over and draw through all 3 loops on my hook. That is a single crochet 2 together. I'm going to go ahead and remove this marker because I'm not going to use it anymore. And I'm going to remove that marker and just set it right there for a second. Now I have not turned my work. I haven't done anything yet because I'm not done. Normally when you turn your work, we would chain 1 and then turn, right? Well, when you're doing a join as you go in this method, you do not chain one. Instead, we let the slip stitch in the next row up take the place of our chain one. So where this blue marker is, that's why we added this blue marker, I'm going to place my hook in where that blue marker is, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through. Go ahead and remove that blue marker. Now I can turn. So I'm going to turn my work, and it's okay that this yarn, you guys, comes around the back and kind of folds over like that. That's totally fine. Okay, that's totally fine. You want to make sure you are not working into this first sort of stitch right there, because that's your slip stitch. So you don't want to work into that first, I want to call it the first loop behind the loop on your hook. Don't work into that because that's your slip stitch. We're going to work into this one right here. We're going to single crochet into it. And now that's one single crochet of this square. And as we work down, we're going to change colors down here just like we did before. I know this seems like a lot, you guys, but you are going to be just fine as you get going. And once you get this done, you're going to feel so accomplished. Just be patient with yourself. I'm working down to where it's the stitch I have to change colors on, okay? So remember, it's essentially the last two stitches. So for this, it would be the last two stitches of my pink. So here they are. I have one there and one there. As I create my stitch here, that's where I'm going to change my color. So I'm going into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, bring my pink forward, pick up my yellow. All right, I kind of have to secure, I usually hold my work like this. Yarn over with the yellow and pull through. This is where I get that float that I'm now going to trap as I work into that last pink stitch. So I'm going to work into that last pink stitch with my yellow and then work into the last yellow. Chain one and turn. Whew, I know you've done so much so far. You just take a breather. You can do this. As we turn our work, one thing you're going to notice is you're looking at the right side of your fabric, right? Because we have it marked here. God bless those markers. And as we come back, we're going to join with a single crochet two together into that marker right there, okay? So we're going to maintain our color changes, which means I'm going to single crochet in the first two. So there's one, and then here's two. And then it's in this next one, I'm also going to put yellow, but I have to have my pink on top also to float. So I'm into the pink stitch. I have the pink yarn on top to float across. Yarn over with the yellow to trap it, pull up a loop, drop my yellow, pick up my pink, yarn over, and pull through. I know this is tricky. You can do this. Now I'm going to work with my pink all the way down to the last stitch of my pink. And in that last stitch, I'm going to do the join together with a single crochet two together, okay? So when I come down here, it's real easy to recognize because it looks like there's like this kind of, I don't know, crazy stuff happening here, I guess. I don't know. You're going to go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, go into the edge of your square here. That's why we marked it. So it's with this orange marker. So I'm going to go into the edge with that orange marker, yarn over, pull up a loop. So I have 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops. I'm going to take out my orange marker because I don't need that anymore. Now remember, I don't chain one and turn. I have to slip stitch where that blue one is. So I'm going to go where the blue marker is, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, and pull that loop through the loop on my hook. I can remove the blue marker now. Now I turn my work, working back along this yarn here. Make sure you do not work into that first, what looks like a stitch, because that's your slip stitch right there. Do not work into that. You're going to work into this. It's the top of the actual single crochet. So go into the top of that. That's the top of your single crochet two together. That's where you want to work into. You're going to yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through two. And we're going to do this all the way across until it's time to do our color change. So I'm going to go to the last two pink stitches. And here we are. In this next stitch, that's where I'm going to do my color change. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, bring my pink yarn forward. Okay, see how it's in front of this stitch, underneath my hook, resting on top of my fabric. I'm just pulling it out of the way. Okay. I bring my yellow yarn. I'm going to bring it up, yarn over, and pull through with my yellow. So that gives me my float. I'm going to trap that float as I work into that last pink stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through two. Now I finish my row with my yellow. Chain one and turn. Whew, everybody take a breather. You got it. You're doing great so far. You're doing great so far, I promise. All right, here we go. We're going back and we're going to change colors again and join. So I'll do a single crochet in all of my yellow stitches. Now in this pink one, I'm still making yellow, but I got to go into the pink stitch, rest the pink yarn on top of it, right? Yarn over with the yellow, pull up a loop, drop my yellow, pick up my pink, yarn over with the pink, and pull through. Now I go ahead and I go to the last stitch of my row, so that way I can work a single crochet two together in the last stitch. So here's the last stitch. So I went into it, yarn over, pull up a loop. I'm going to find my marker. So I have my orange marker. I go into that edge of the block with the orange marker, yarn over, pull up a loop. Oops, I slipped my yarn. In, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all three, remove your orange marker. All right. Now you can't turn yet, right? Because we haven't done our slip stitch. We have to put a slip stitch where the blue marker is. So you go where the blue marker is now, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, draw that loop through, remove your blue marker. All right. Now I can turn. And it's totally all right that your yarn kind of just goes around the back like that. It's totally fine. Do not work into that slip stitch. Work into the top of the single crochet two together to work your single crochet. And then work your single crochets over to the last two pink stitches. There they are. We're going to change colors in this one. So here we go. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, bring your yarn forward. Pick up your yellow, yarn over, pull through, trap that float by working around it as you're working that next pink stitch with the yellow yarn, and then carry on. I'm going to keep doing this, guys. We're going to do this all the way. Chain one and turn. We're back to our right side. So I'll single crochet to where I have to do my color change again. Insert my hook. Oops. Make sure the pink float is on top of my hook also. Right? It's just resting there with the stitch, so that way I can work my yellow yarn around both of them. Pull up a loop with my yellow, drop the yellow, pick up the pink, Finish that stitch with the pink, and then carry on with the pink to the last stitch where I'm going to do a single crochet 2 together. So right here, I go into that last stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, find the edge with the marker that I used right there, that orange marker, that's the edge, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3 loops. So that's our single crochet 2 together. Remove the orange marker. Can't turn yet because we have to do our slip stitch. So in the next row up where our blue is, go into that row, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through, get rid of your blue marker. See how we're eliminating these as we go, so it makes it easier to see how things all connect. And now we're going to turn our work. Working into the top of the single crochet 2 together, not your slip stitch. Insert your hook and create your single crochet. That immediately brings us to where we're going to have to change colors, right? Because these are the 2 stitches. So in this one is where we change colors on the final draw through. So I insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, bring my yarn forward, grab my yellow, yarn over, pull through, trap that yellow float as you work into that next pink stitch with your single crochet, and then finish the row with the single crochets and your yellow yarn, or whatever color you are using. Almost done, y'all. Almost done. Let me get to the end there. Chain 1 and turn. Now this one is unique, so you want to really pay attention, because this is just like the final couple rows of the other square where things get a little bit interesting. So on this one, I go into the pink, rest the pink on top, the pink float, secure my single crochet around all of it. Oops, drop my yellow, pick up my pink, yarn over, draw through with my pink. Now the next stitch is my single crochet 2 together. So I'll go into the stitch, yarn over, pull up, go into the edge of my first block, so where my orange marker is, yarn over, pull up, yarn over, draw through all 3. Excuse me. I'll remove this marker. Now I have to slip stitch up here, but I'm not going to slip stitch with my pink, I'm going to slip stitch with my yellow, right? Because my next row is all yellow. So as I go into this row where I have that blue marker, I'm going to drop my pink, pick up my yellow, yarn over, pull up a loop with my yellow, pull that loop through the loop on my hook, okay? Get rid of my marker. See how handy those are? Now I turn. I'm going to trap that float just like I did before, okay? So I'm going to trap that float as I work into that first pink stitch there. And then I'm going to finish with all of my yellow stitches. That's the end, so I will chain 1, cut my yarn, I can cut my pink also, give that a pull, go ahead and weave in your tails to the wrong side, take a breather, go get yourself a celebratory like Snickers bar if that's what you're into, because that was a lot of work and it might take you a couple times to do that. But If you are adamant that you do not want to seam all of these squares together and you want to do a join as you go method, this is the way we're going to go about it. It's very, very, very similar to single crochet interlock. Very similar. There's the only difference is the direction of our actual stitches. They aren't on the bias. They're just back and forth, but it is still just joining the single crochet two together. It's the exact same idea as the single crochet interlock that I have taught before to many of you. So I know that this can be a little bit frustrating with the join as you go, but as I mentioned, I know there are so many of you that would want to know how to do this. And so I was like, you know what? I'll show them how to do it and I'll let you decide if that's what you want to do. I mean, personally, it's exactly what I would do. Once you do it a couple times and you just be patient with yourself, be very deliberate with the stitches, use the markers, you can manage this. It might take a couple of tries to get it right, but you'll be just fine. I mean, anything worth doing is worth doing right. And I know that you can figure it out. All of you are smart enough to be here. You're smart enough to do this for sure. And as I said, make sure you're weaving in your ends as you go, and it will make things so much easier when everything is said and done. Look at that. Everything is all nice and tidy. Pretty cool, right? So this would be block, let me see here. That's block number 1. That's block number 2. So now you would go on and you would work block number 3. Block number 3 is worked just like block number 2. And then block number 4 gets a little bit different. So what I want to do is I want to work on block number 4 so I can show you how that goes. And then I want to work on block number 5 so I can show you how that goes. Those are the two that are a little bit tricky as you're going along with this join as you go method. I'm just going to grab my yarn and jump in and get going with it. Hopefully you find it helpful and you'll continue on with this. All right. So go get yourself a drink, go have a potty break. Let's go ahead, jump back in. I'm going to jump to block number 4 and then we'll do block number 5. As we move on to block number 4, you will notice that it is made right on top of block number 1. We'll actually join with a slip stitch right here and work single crochets all along the top of block number 1. And then just work back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, creating a block very similar to block number 1. When we get to block number 5, we're going to join with the slip stitch right over here on top of block number 2. Work across the row here of row number 2, and then at the same time, join with our single crochet 2 together to block number 4, very similar to what we just did. So what we just did is the starting off point, the cornerstone of all the information you need in order to move on with the project. It's pretty self-explanatory. So what I want to do, I want to get you started with this, get this finished, and then get started with this one so you can see how that works up, okay? Ideally, I would like you to finish 1, 2, 3, and then go back to 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9. But for purposes of the video, I'm jumping over here to 4 and 5 on top of 1 and 2. All right, so let's go ahead. To get started, we're going to join our color D in the upper right-hand corner of block number 1. And we're working right along all of these stitches, which makes it very easy to find where we're going to create our stitches, right? So I'm going to place my hook in the top right-hand corner of block number 1, grab my color D, which happens to be the yellow that we just got done working with, and I'll join with a slip stitch. Now I'm going to single crochet in this first stitch. However, I need to change colors because the rest of the stitches are done with my color B. So I'm going to drop my yellow, pick up my lighter pink color, and yarn over and pull through with my lighter pink. Okay? So that way my pink is ready to go for these next stitches. So now I'll carry on and I'm going to work with my color B all the way down the row for 9 stitches, which will give me a total of 10 stitches for my next block. I'm going to count and make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches, plus the 1 yellow gives me 10. So now I carry on very similar to how I did block number 1. I'm going to change colors. I don't have to join. I don't have to do anything like that. It's simply just doing the intarsia. So I'm going to work over to 2 stitches before the color change, or 2 stitches before I have to use the other color in a stitch, right? I guess that's a way to say it. All right, so here we are. I have 2 pink stitches left, which means on this pink stitch, as I work it on the final draw through, I have to change colors. So I'm going to insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, bring my yarn forward, pick up my yellow, let's find it. Right there. Bring it up, yarn over, and draw through. Now I'm going to catch that float as I work into that next pink stitch. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through 2. Work into that final yellow. And voila. Chain 1 and turn. We don't have to join anything here, right? We're just working a basic square. When I get to this first pink, that's going to be a yellow stitch. Remember to put your float on top of your hook, so that way you can trap it with your yellow. Pull up a loop, so you have 2 loops on your hook. Drop your yellow, yarn over with your pink, pull through, and then finish with your pink, or whatever color you are using. All right, I just want to make sure you understand with the colors I'm using. So on and so forth. So I'm going to keep going with this square. Once you finish your square, go ahead and weave in your tails. Yes, I'm doing it again. It is that important. There we go. That's the wrong side. Oops, sorry. There's the wrong side. There's the right side. So that's 1, 2, and this is block 4. So for block 5, I'm going to join my yarn over here in this corner. I'm going to work across my row just like I did right there to this corner. However, on my last stitch here, I'm going to join it with a single crochet 2 together over here. So what I want to do is along this path, I'm going to take my markers once again, and I'm going to mark my path. Now I don't have to mark my first slip stitch because I'm not joining with a slip stitch over here. My first row right here, that will be my join 2 together. So that one there will be my single crochet 2 together row. I can get my markers. There's my slip stitch row. 2 together. Slip stitch. 2 together. Slip stitch. 2 together. Slip stitch, 2 together, and then the final will be a slip stitch. Okay, that leaves me with 1 marker that I could use to put into the final stitch right here. I don't really need to do it because I can see it pretty darn easily. Okay, so I'm not going to use that. But let's go ahead and we're going to grab once again our color B, because we start off with, I'm sorry, no, we do not start off with color B. We'll do one stitch with color E and then go to color B, okay? So my color E is actually white, so I hope you can see it fairly well. We will find out, I suppose. My hook rolled off my table. Let me grab it. You know, I love using this hook because it makes it so my hand doesn't cramp, but sure does roll off the table really easily. All right, so we're going to join with a slip stitch in the upper right hand corner of block number 2. So this corner over here, I'm going to join with a slip stitch. If I can get my hook in there through the stitch itself. There we go. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then draw through. There's your slip stitch. And chain 1, single crochet in this first one. But once again, we're going to change colors. All right. So I'm going to grab my color B. Yarn over, pull through. And now I'll continue on with my color B to the last single crochet. So we're going to have 9 total. So I'm going to get 8 of them done, and the 9th one is where I'm going to do a single crochet 2 together over the last stitch on here and the first one that I marked. Let me count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this would be 8. So 9 is right here. It's number 9. So I yarned over, pulled up a loop. I'm going to go to my first marked stitch over here, or row. That's my first row. So I'll put my hook into there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3. Take out that marker. It's just like before, you guys. Everything from here on out is just like before. Don't turn your work because we have to do the slip stitch into that blue one. So I go into that row, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through, remove the blue. Now I turn. Make sure you do not work into that slip stitch. Work into the top of that single crochet 2 together. Do your single crochet over to where it's 2 stitches before the other color. Here we go. This one I'm going to change colors. So I insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull my pink yarn forward, grab the white, pull my white up, yarn over, pull through, trap that white float as I work into that pink stitch with my single, and then do my single and my white. Chain 1 and turn. Continue on with my intarsia and continue on with my single crochet 2 together, join. So right here, insert my hook, make sure my pink float is on top, trap it with my white, drop my white. Oops, I trapped my tail. Don't do that. Don't trap your tail. Okay, let's do this one more time. So move the tail out of the way. In, grab the yarn, trap the float, drop my white, pick up my pink, yarn over, and draw through. Now we're going to single crochet over to the last single crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's number 7. So I yarn over, pull up a loop, find my orange marker, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, draw through all 3, remove my orange marker, slip stitch into my blue marker where the space is, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull that loop through, Now I turn. Work our way back. First stitch always goes into the top of that single crochet two together. So I'm going to work over to where it's 2 stitches before the other color. Here's the first of the 2. Yarn over, pull up a loop. Bring that color forward. Pick up the color you're changing to. Bring it up, yarn over. Trap that float as you work into that next stitch. And then continue on with that color. Here we go. I'm just going to continue on making this square so you can see what it looks like. Well, that's always delightful. Hello there. Hello. Hi. Yes. Hi. I see you. I see you. Mommy's doing a class. Mommy's doing a class. You got to go lay down. Can you go lay down? Can you go lay down? Can I finish? Can I finish, please? All right, so here we are. We're back to the right side. You can see this is my square number 1. Remember, I marked it. Square number 2, square number 4, square number 5, and you would continue on working in this method until you get all 9 squares done in this quadrant if you're going to do the join as you go. If you're going to make each square individually, simply make each square individually following the color sequence as they're presented on that diagram. Pretty easy stuff. All right, so this is your homework. Complete all 9 squares, whether you're making the pillow size or the throw size, totally up to you. Go ahead, tackle this wonderful technique, and then next week we will learn something else, and you'll get the next set of instructions for the next quadrant of the pillow or the throw. I really hope you're having a good time so far. I know it can be a little bit frustrating to begin with, but I believe in you. I know you can do this. If you have any questions, remember to join the Marley's Minions Facebook group. There is a place there for you to ask questions, and there's a lot of people there to help me, the testers, and other people who are working along this project with you. As you work on the project, please share on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird or hashtag Tournament of Stitches so that way I can find your work and smash your like button. And because I know all of you are going to ask, this is the Turkey Trot Ruana from 2020. I freaking love it. It's so amazing. The pattern will be available very soon. As soon as it is, I'll be sure to list it on the Marley Bird website, and I'll put a link in the video description box below or in that little I button, wherever it is. I don't know. All right, guys, I will see you next Thursday. Good luck.